Hi everybody, it's great to be back here again on Tomorrow. It's Friday. Wow, let's get right down to a Torah lesson. Again, it's a little windy, we feel the breeze over here. Just want to give this week's portion, Bahalotcha. I want to open up with a small question and just give one important insight I think we could take with us, not only for the week, but it's, I think, a lesson for life. And if it opens up, we look at the verse in Numbers chapter 8, verse number 1. It says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God speaks to Moses, saying, Daber el Aaron, speak to Aaron. V'amarta elav, and say to him, Ba'alotcha et hanerot, when you will light the candles, el mul pnei hamenorah ya'iru shivat hanerot. You light the candles, you shall make sure that 7 candles are lit. It's a very interesting question here. It's an unusual style of writing. Why? Because it says in Hebrew, Bahalotcha, when you will light the candles. What should have it said? It should have said, God spoke to Moshe saying, command Aaron to light the candles. Like, why wasn't it said in the form of a command? It was more than said, when you light the candles, make sure that the 7 candles are lit across from the central candle, known as the Ner Amaravi, the western candle, which was really in the center. And then it says, Aaron went ahead and he lit the candles, etc. So the question again, I'll rephrase if it wasn't clear, is here, instead of opening up like the normal way it opens up by saying, God told Moshe, command Aaron, or God commands Moses, as a commandment style. We know there's a law, right? There is a mitzvah of lighting the candles. But it was sort of saying, when you light the candles, make sure you do it this way. And that's a very, very unusual expression in the Torah. We're talking about fulfilling the mitzvah. And if we look according to the law, it's interesting that there's something we call in Hebrew avodah. Working the Beit HaMikdash. When you work in the Beit HaMikdash, there are certain things that only are allowed to be done by Kohanim, by priests. For example, any kind of thing with the sacrifice of sprinkling the blood or receiving the blood, bringing the blood over to the altar, all those things have to be done by a Kohen, by a priest. It can't be done by someone who is a regular Israelite, or we call Yisrael, or even a Levite. It has to be done by a Kohen himself. Certain things are allowed to be done by regular individuals. For example, the actual shechita, the slaughtering, can be done by a regular individual. It doesn't have to be a Kohen. And therefore, the Rambam, Maimonides, when he talks about the law of lighting the candles, he says, theoretically, it doesn't have to be lit. The candles, the reason it says in the style, Bahalotcha, we can learn. He just answers the question, doesn't really ask the question. But he says that this is one of the kind of laws where a regular Yisrael or a Levite can light the candles. But of course, they can't enter the sanctuary where the candles were lit. So that if they can theoretically bring the menorah out, or bring out the wicks of the menorah and light them and bring it back in, whatever it is, it can be lit by someone who's not a Kohen. Unlike the actual cleaning of the candelabra, that has to be done only by Kohen, because that's part of the service. So it's very interesting in that the lighting the candle, halachically, it's allowed to be done by anyone, not only by a Kohen, which is very unusual as well. Especially when you think about the lighting the candles, it's such a powerful thing when you think about light and all that experience. So why is, according to the Rambam, everyone allowed to light it? Technically, again, by not entering the sanctuary, how would they work it out? But it's something very unusual. Now, there are other opinions that say, if it was lit by someone who's not a Kohen, it's not considered by someone transgressing by doing work that a Kohen would have to do, like a priest would do. But I'm not going to get involved in intricate details. But I want to mention this fact as we approach the discussion of the menorah. It's an important thing to point out. But I thought if we look at it again, I mentioned a lesson for life, in another aspect. So besides the fact that when you light the candles, not sort of limiting it to Aaron, but it can be for everyone, again, theoretically. But I think it's something much deeper than that. It's also very, very teaching us a very big lesson, that everyone really could light a candle. And it's not really limited to the divine service in the temple itself, but for the Kohanim, for the priests. In other words, God is saying every person has a message, every person has a candle to light, and every person should be lighting that candle. And again, as we say, every person has a letter in the Torah that glows. This person has a very special talent. Everyone is talented in many different ways. And the beauty of life is to appreciate the talents of others and let everyone add to that beautiful painted picture. I always say it's likened to a beautiful picture, that everyone adds a color to it. And that's the letter we have in the Torah. Everyone has a beautiful soul and something to offer for that wonderful picture. So here again, I thought of saying, why does he use the expression when you will light the candle? And not commanding us to light the candle is that when a person lights a candle, it's something that has to come from within. You can't go and tell someone, light a candle. It doesn't work. Lighting a candle on a explaining it as a metaphor, it refers to us being an example to others. We want to be a lighthouse to others, lighting that candle so others could learn from us. We can't go ahead and say, okay, mister, I want you to be a candle for others. The example has to come natural. The person has to live a life of lighting a candle. And his example will be learned by others. So it's not being told, be a candle. The beauty is that you have to be an example of a candle lighting. And your candle will burn and others will bathe in that light and learn from your life experience. And that is the beauty of lighting a candle. Everyone has to be a candle. And that's why, again, it wasn't only for the priests, it was for everybody. I thought also we can connect us to the latter portion of this week's portion. We see at the end of this week's portion, Miriam, the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Aaron, as a matter of fact, we know that Miriam speaks Lashon Hara, as we say, about her brother Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, saying that about his wife. I'm not getting into details what it was. There's a lot to talk about in that in itself. But in reality, if we look at how the way Hashem immediately said, how can you speak about my servant Moses? Who is, again, Moshe Rabbeinu, the most modest person on earth. I think ending this week's portion with the modesty of Moshe Rabbeinu and how even his sister, who she was a prophetess, and Aaron, they didn't understand the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. They didn't understand the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. He was so great and so modest that in a way they didn't realize what kind of level of prophecy that he was on. And if that isn't an amazing example of being a candle for all of us, to learn, it opens up with the lighting of a candle again and ends with Moses, right, as a candle for all of Israel, to learn from what it is of his modesty. And we see it in a couple of different places in this week's portion. In Eldad and Medad, we know when it says gather the 70 elders, and Moshe Rabbeinu was trying to gather together a court of 70 elders, and Eldad and Medad, who, according to certain opinions, were actually related to Moshe Rabbeinu. They were brothers from the father or the mother, in different opinions. But these two great modest individuals didn't want to show up when they were doing the picking out the 70 elders. They felt they weren't worthy. And because they pulled themselves away, this was brought down in Midrash, and they didn't want to be part of that sifting out to be the elders, they were merited in prophecy. And what did they prophesize? They prophesized that Moshe Rabbeinu was going to pass away in the wilderness and Joshua was going to take over. And this was their prophecy. And the fact that they were so modest, they ran away from being the honor of being chosen as members of the court. They were merited in the prophecy in itself. And that again is a lesson of modesty. And when that happened, Moshe Rabbeinu was right away told by his son Gershon, according to Chazal, Rabbi's teachers, his son Gershon said, Dad, and he goes off to Joshua and Moses when they were standing together, and he says, Dad, these two guys, who happens to be his brothers according to Chazal, are prophesying that you're going to pass away and Joshua is going to take Israel into the land of Israel. And you'd expect someone to feel a little bit taken aback or bad about it. What is the response of Moses? His response right away is Joshua, of course, thought right away upset about what they said, and they said, arrest them or stop, whatever it was. Chazal explained, give them important things to do for the community, and the prophecy will cease because a person can't be prophesied when he's all full of different things to take care of. His mind is all wandering away, taking care of the congregation. So Joshua was suggesting these things to Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu was saying, why? Let it be that all of Israel prophesies. And although the prophecy, again, was sort of against his personal leadership, continuing as a leader, he immediately was so happy and was so truly, sincerely happy that others were prophesying and accepted it. This is the lesson. This is the lighthouse. This is the candle that is glowing throughout this week's portion, teaching us a lesson of modesty and ending with that message of what it is to be modest. That is the candle. We don't have to, again, when someone is modest, you don't have to go tell someone. Be a candle of modesty. Be an example of modesty. It's not a commandment. When a person is an example of something, it automatically glows. It automatically shines. And the message, just like the warmth of a fire, is felt by others. And the glow glows out for the distance. At light speed, it could reach, again, universes. And the entire world could literally be lit up like a torch from those who act with modesty and serve as examples for others. This is a life message again for all of us. We should live our lives as thinking about how important it is to be examples. And don't go ahead and preach just to others. You have to be an example yourself, and that will wear off on others. Be example of modesty, and we will see the tremendous fruit of such labor, of really, truly being an example to others without having to preach. And that's the lesson. Bahalotcha, when you light the candles, not you go ahead and light candles. Be an example to others. Pass that message on. And that will, of course, make the world a much better place to live in. This is one small message of many, of course, but that's the beauty of Torah. It can take us everywhere. So I hope you have a wonderful Shabbat, and let us be examples to others and learn from this message of the candle, lighting the candle in the Beit HaMikdash. Shabbat Shalom, B'sorot Tovot, Yeshuot V'Nechamot.